Hi there. You're watching and listening to Sipping Off the Cuff on Tequila Aficionado Media on all of our platforms. I'm Mike Morales here in San Antonio. That gentleman out there is
Eric Zandona in Vancouver, Washington.
Eric, and I have been we've really flipped over the Aqara Agave de los Andes. This is an Andean Peruvian agave spirit.
Yeah.
And if you've watched the plateado, this is what they're calling the unaged video. We were really enamored by all the flavors and aromas.
Yeah.
And anyway, we were discussing off camera that this is they're calling this a reposado. They're using virgin American oak barrels. And
Yeah.
for how long are they aging this again?
4 months.
4 months. And that's a deep color. Now the other thing that this is what they say was they're distilling this at a distillery that's 2,200 meters above sea level.
Yeah.
I would imagine too that I think you mentioned in the plateado video that their distillery they started building the distillery in 2016.
Yeah, something like that. They said that it took them 3 years to build out the distillery, and then they just launched in 2019. So I kind of did the math backwards and.
Yeah. Oh, good. I knew math would come in handy sooner or later. But I would imagine that if they're resting them on site, that resting any agave spirit or anything else at a higher sea level versus a lower, more warmer climate, there's less evaporation as well. Correct? I mean, somebody once explained it to me. Tropical. See if I do this. I'm paraphrasing. Tropical aging is a little bit different than aging, in a Scotch, let's say, in areas like, things age faster in warmer climates, and the evaporation is more because some of those barrel rooms in tequila, I remember walking into one, are really hot. They're not climate controlled like some of the bigger brands that.
So there's two things there are a couple of things going on with how much angel share you can lose on your when you're storing your barrels. Part of it's temperature, part of it's humidity, and then part of it is and this is not well understood, is atmospheric pressure. So just like how water boils at a lower temperature, you're going to have more alcohol evaporation at higher elevation. So like Breckenridge Distillery, which is at like 7,000 feet above sea level, because they're above 6,000 because they're in the mountains above Denver.
Right.
They have a crazy amount of loss for their whiskeys because it's so dry up in the high mountains. So it wouldn't surprise me that this brand, the Aqara, also has a good amount of evaporation because that area is, if you see the terrain, it's not lush jungle, it's grasslands and agaves. So it's probably fairly dry up in the high mountains, which means low pressure, dry, and then probably mild temperatures, probably. And so those things combined, who knows? It wouldn't surprise me if their loss is somewhere around like 6 or 8% a year, if not more.
Wow.
But they're only doing 4 months at a time, so that helps. So anyway.
Well, let's pour some and discuss. I know that I wanted to get a lot of the information out when we did the follow, because normally we'll taste something and then we'll tell you all about it. But in this case, because it is a new agave spirit to us and new on the market and just new to us agave spirit lovers, that it made sense for us to go into a little bit of the background. They have a video. We discussed it on the plateado. They have a video where they show how they're harvesting. It's wild harvested, and like Eric said, the ground is you know the ground is not only rocky but hilly, so everything is up at a 45-degree angle. You know, so they're harvesting with koas, but then they don't show us how these agaves are being cooked. They show us in that short video. It's like a 40-second video that you can watch on Instagram. You can check them out on Instagram.
Yeah.
They're chopping these up, the hearts, the piñas, like you would chop up a yuca, you know, or a jicama. You know, they're really chopping them up in small pieces, but then we don't know how they're being cooked. We don't know if they're using autoclaves or steam, or the plateado had no smoke on it on the flavor profile, so it was more akin to a tequila. Then it kind of leaned more toward tequila than it did to mezcal. But then again, Eric said, well, it reminds me of pisco. So it's kind of like somewhere in between.
Yeah.
On the flavor profile.
Yeah.
Well,
so what's interesting about the nose on this is that it's really similar to the plateado. There's not a lot of wood character. There's a little bit, if you really think about it, there's a little bit there.
I think it's blending in well with now they're using agave americana and salmiana.
Yeah.
But they're not telling us if they're, first of all, they're not telling us if they're using one or the other or both. I'm going to assume that they're using both.
Yeah.
And we don't know what the percentage of blend is. It's not like a 70-30, 60-40, 50-50. We don't know, and it doesn't really matter. I don't know.
Yeah, so there's some light woodiness to it, but you're not getting, my guess is it's hard to tell. I mean, they don't say whether they're charring them or toasting them or whatever. There's not a ton of like vanilla or caramel on the nose, so maybe they're not charred, or maybe they're just lightly charred. I mean, 4 months for this amount of color, it's hard to say.
Well, it's rather deep, you know. Well, then again, they're not using used barrels; they're using virgin barrels.
Right.
Okay.
So
now the tears and legs, very beautiful. I mean, they're sheeting nicely. It's behaving.
Yeah.
And as more as now, I'm using a Stasel Jarrito for mezcal. I'm using it with a much larger nose, and Eric's using his handy dandy Glencairn.
Yeah.
And I'm, the more it opens up for me, the more of the plateado characteristics I'm getting. You know, that fruitiness and the. You know what's really weird is that I didn't get, like we did with the Palmira, the Sotol that we had, you know, a few weeks back, where you get that ground, that desert, you know, that the terrain. You know, I didn't get that from these.
No.
I'll have to read the back of this label as well. I know I read it in Spanish, but it's probably, this one might have a little bit different information. Let's dive in. Let's see what we get.
So the barrel shows up on the palate.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. It's got this real like spicy, like cinnamon, nutmeg kind of spice.
Yeah.
Coming from the wood, which is a nice complement to the rich like umami character in the fruit. So the plateado we described had this kind of interesting mix of like bright fruit, but then a real rich body. So you think about that, and then you layer on top of that some like wood spice, like cinnamon, nutmeg kind of thing, a little bit of clove maybe. Layer that on top, actually works really well. So it's a nice kind of, it's a nice integration.
Yeah, it's you know what's nice is once on the intake, all the characteristics of the plateado came through as well, and the barrel notes were almost an afterthought. You know what I mean? It did. Let's put it this way: it reacts to wood the way an aged mezcal reacts to wood. It's just one more layer of
Yeah.
complexity. You know,
Hmm.
it doesn't overpower the agave. It
No.
actually presents the agave in a whole different kind of
Yeah.
light. And you know that bitterness, that really flavorful bitterness. That's about the only thing I can describe it
Yeah.
of the plateado. Really plays nice with that cinnamon, that hot cinnamon, that
Hmm.
spice that you get from the barrel.
Yeah.
Mm. You know, and it's the finish. The finish is not a warm fuzzy. You don't even the finish is more on the palate, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
You have a lingering palate coating that it's not cloying. It's very natural.
Hmm.
um, I really wish I knew more. I wish I knew how they
Yeah.
cooked it, how they fermented it, what they're doing. The only thing that we've seen in any of the pictures is the as you said, the European still, the German, the Holstein.
Yeah, it looks like some European style, whether it's Holstein or Christian Carl, something like that. It's got a membrane or like a steam jacket on the outside.
Mhm.
So the contents don't get cooked directly with fire. It's like a double boiler kind of still.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's going to give you a different flavor profile. Um, but it's interesting. So, I mean, the spirit I think is fascinating. I think this would work really well with I think this would complement like a darker wrapper cigar, like a
Oh yeah.
Maduro, something that has like some of that like spicy, earthy character. I
Mhm.
think play really well both against the cinnamony kind of flavor, but also the bright fruitiness I think would complement well against some of the more earth kind of darker flavors that you might get out of a Maduro cigar.
Yeah, I agree. It never even occurred to me because it's not. Once you have enough mezcals and you have enough tequilas, and you start going, well, see, what do I pair it with, food or whatever, um, or what kind of. We always ask, what kind of do you think this is a good cocktail, kind of
Yeah.
thing. I thought that the plateado would make a great anything that you make as martinis or gin, any of those. Um, Cocktails that you make with vodka or gin, particularly gin, I think,
Yeah.
would really do well. That particular brand would do well in any of those cocktails. Now, this is an 80 proof, 40 ABV. Again, I would love to taste this at a higher ABV.
Yeah.
Let me see if it says anything else on the. It says that, of course, the water that they're using is glacier water. And because of that, you get more herbal and tierra andina, which is the terroir, which is the
Yeah.
the flavor of that area where they're being harvested. It says it just evokes sweet fruits that have matured in their own pots. Um, Now, Aqara says it has the name of the town itself, Caras, which in Quechua it's pronounced Caray with Qaaray, which translates to lugar de agaves in Quechua.
Hmm.
Um, uh, and for centuries, they've had plants in that area. Um, and the lot numbers the lots are numbered here as well.
Yeah.
Uh, Aguardiente producido por Chopin. That's who's making it, and they're making it in the town of Caras.
Yeah.
So, um, I
So from their Instagram page, what I found was that the brand Aqara is made by the distillery is located at a lodge in the town, so you can go and stay there. And they like from their pictures, like you see these giant like mountains with glacier ice on them. You know, very like if you ever seen pictures of the Peruvian mountains, and it's just fantastic. I love like climbing mountains and hiking in the woods and all that. So to me, it's like I want to go visit that. Like
Yeah,
I want to
I've
go.
never been. I'm my parents are from Central America, and the last time I was in Nicaragua, which is where they're from, my uncle drove us to what they consider their forest, up in the hills, because Nicaragua in and of itself is volcanic,
Yeah.
but there are lots of there are active and inactive volcanoes, and it is mountainous, a mountainous area. So at higher altitudes that we were at, there were these huge agave plants. They just grow wild, and they reminded me of the ones that you use that you harvest. Um, uh, oh gosh,
Okay.
pulque. Yes, they're that big.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm not even sure. The last time I was there, I wasn't even into mezcal as I was into tequila. So, but I noticed that these look very reminiscent of
Yeah.
the pulque types, where you go into the center, because the leaves are very elephantine. They curl out like that, but they're huge.
Yeah.
And I guess when you're up in that area and nobody harvests you, or nobody, in
Yeah.
Nicaragua itself, they don't make an agave spirit, to my knowledge. What they do make is rum. They have a huge sugarcane industry.
Mhm.
So I thought, wow, if anybody was smart enough, they'd come up there and make something out of those agaves, because they're just everywhere.
Yeah.
So I imagine it's similar there, that when it's untouched, they grow like, they go bananas, because
Yeah.
they're not over harvested.
No.
And that, and of course, we don't know the ages of the plants themselves. We don't know if they're 6, 7, 8, 13, 14. I have
They're
no
big.
idea.
I mean, for the pictures that they have of the harvest, they're big. They're big agaves. But Salmiano is a big agave to begin with. That's in central Mexico is commonly used for pulque as well. So they're big guys.
Yeah, this is fascinating, Eric, and I'm gonna have to nominate it. Brand of Promise nominee. This is a brand new brand. Look for it. It's just coming on the market. Aqara.
Yeah.
It is really a delight. If you're into mezcals, or you're into these old school tequilas, and you really want to you want to be challenged, with your palate, to see what else is out there.
Yeah.
This is one of those brands you gotta find, you gotta try. I don't even know what a price point is on these things. Do you?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's not clear if they have U.S. importation yet or if they're working on it. They've entered a couple of competitions. They entered into New York International. They entered San Francisco World, where they got a gold or double gold medal. I think gold medal for their Plateado. So they're, my guess is they're working on that. And
It's
so
lovely.
I think it's a really interesting entry into the agave spirits category. I think there's a lot of potential for cocktails with these guys. And it's something interesting and different. That's not your average tequila, and it's not mezcal. And so it's something I think to keep an eye out for. If you're interested in agave spirits, like this is something new and interesting to look for.
I agree, totally agree. Again, Brand of Promise nominee in the Peruvian Andean agave spirit category. Thank you for those folks they moved heaven and earth to get these to us, and I so appreciate that. But that's our take on Aqara. That's Agave de los Andes. I'm Mike Morales here in San Antonio. That gentleman out there is
Eric Zandona in Vancouver, Washington.
You have been watching and dissecting and listening to Sipping Off the Cuff on Tequila Aficionado Media on all of our channels and networks. Please subscribe to us wherever you download your podcasts, or if you're watching us on Instagram, click that red button, hit the notification bell, and every time we upload a video with Eric on it, you'll get notified right on your cell phone right there. So whatever you do, tomar sabiamente.
Sip wisely.